Hello Year 9. We're going to read the opening part to a very famous ghost story called The Red Room, written in the Victorian period by a writer called H.G. Wells, who also wrote the story War of the Worlds. Now, this story, The Red Room, has a very simple concept. A young man who believes in science and doesn't believe in ghosts or in superstition arrives at a famously haunted castle in order to spend the night as a kind of challenge in a place called the Red Room, where previously other young men have died attempting to do the same as him, to prove that ghosts are a silly invention. Now, this is an important issue for the Victorians. More people believe in science, less people believe in religion. This story fits into that idea. So, listen to this opening as the young man arrives at the castle and speaks to some incredibly strange and sinister servants about his wish to sleep in the infamous Red Room and prove that ghosts do not exist. "I can assure you," said I, "that it will take a very real ghost to frighten me." And I stood up before the fire with my glass in my hand. "It is your own choosing," said the man with the withered arm, and glanced at me. 28 years, said I have lived, and never a ghost have I seen yet." The old woman sat, staring hard into the fire, her pale eyes wide open. "Aye," she broke in, "and 28 years you have lived and never seen the likes of this house, I reckon. There's a many things to see when one's still but 28. She swayed her head slowly from side to side, and many things to see and sorrow for. I half suspected the old people were trying to enhance the spiritual terrors of their house by their droning insistence. I put down my empty glass on the table and looked around the room and caught a glimpse of myself, abbreviated and broadened to an impossible sturdiness in the strange old mirror at the end of the room. "Well," I said, "if I see anything tonight, I shall be much wiser, for I come to the business with an open mind." "It is your own choosing," said the man with the withered arm once more. I heard the faint sound of a stick and a shambling step on the flags in the passage outside. The door creaked on its hinges as a second old man entered, more bent, more wrinkled, more aged even than the first. He supported himself by the help of a crutch. His eyes were covered by a shade, and his lower lip, half averted, hung pale and pink from his yellow teeth. He made straight for an armchair on the opposite side of the table, sat down clumsily, and began to cough. The man with the withered hand gave the newcomer a short glance of dislike. The old woman took no notice of his arrival, but remained with her eyes fixed steadily on the fire. "I said it's your own choosing," said the man with the withered hand when the coughing had stopped for a while. "It is my own choosing," I answered. The man with the shade became aware of my presence for the first time, and threw his head back for a moment and sideways to see me. I caught a momentary glimpse of his eyes, small, bright and inflamed. Then he began to cough and splutter again. "Why don't you drink?" said the man with the withered arm, pushing beer towards him. The man with the shade poured out a glassful with a shaking hand that splashed half as much again on the table. A monstrous shadow of him crouched upon the wall and mocked his actions as he poured and drank. I must confess, I hadn't imagined or expected these grotesque custodians. There is, to my mind, something inhuman in old people, something crouching. The human qualities seem to drop from old people day by day. The three of them made me feel uncomfortable with their gaunt silences, their bent carriage, their evident unfriendliness to me and to each other. And that night, perhaps, I was not in the mood for uncomfortable impressions. I resolved to get away from their vague foreshadowings of the evil thing upstairs. "If," said I, "you will show me to this haunted room of yours, I will make myself comfortable there." The old man with the cough jerked his head back so suddenly that it startled me, and shot another glance of his red eyes at me from out of the darkness under the shade, but no one answered me. I waited a minute, glancing from one to the other. The old woman stared like a dead body, glaring into the fire with lacklustre eyes. "If," I said a little louder, "if you will show me to this haunted room of yours, I will relieve you of the task of entertaining me." "There's a candle on the slab outside the door," said the man with the withered hand, looking at my feet as he addressed me. "But if you go to the Red Room tonight, this night of all nights," said the old woman softly, "you go alone." "Very well," I answered shortly. "And which way do I go?" "You go along the passage for a bit," said he, nodding his head on his shoulder at the door, "until you come to a spiral staircase, and on the second landing is a door covered in green material. Go through that and down the long corridor to the end, and the Red Room is on your left up the steps." "Have I got that right?" I said, and repeated his directions. He corrected me once. "And are you really going?" said the man with the shade, looking at me again for the third time with that strange, unnatural tilting of the face. "This night of all nights," whispered the old woman. "It is what I came for," I said, and moved towards the door. As I did so, the old man with the shade rose and staggered round the table so as to be closer to the others and to the fire. At the door, I turned and looked at them again, and saw that they were all close together, dark against the firelight, staring at me over their shoulders with an intent expression on their ancient faces. "Good night," I said, setting the door open. "It is your own choosing," said the man with the withered arm. Now, we'll leave the story there, and I want you to think carefully about how the writer sets up a frightening atmosphere in the opening to this story. On the assignment shared with you, read back through the opening to this story, and with a highlighter, highlight anything that you think helps to make this a sinister, frightening introduction. You could focus on the use of the different senses, for example, or on the use of adjectives or the use of imagery. Anything that you think adds to the feeling of gothic horror created here. Now, once you've done that, I want a short paragraph explaining how you think the writer has created a scary opening here by referring to the bits of text that you have highlighted. So good luck with that, and I'll speak to you soon.